I became a single parent. I was in a relationship. I moved from the UK 16 years ago and was in a relationship with an Australian man. So I moved over to Australia for love and I wanted children. And the guy I was with didn't want children. Well, not with me anyway. So I made the really tough decision. Took me a year, but I made a really tough decision to move out and pursue my journey on my own, and whether that be with a child or with children, with somebody else's children, um, that was where I felt that I needed to be. So then I met my father and my son's father, and then was with him for a period of time. And surprise, surprise, at 44, discovered that I was pregnant. And I was pregnant with my son, had my son, then discovered that my partner had hidden a lot of addiction issues from me I discovered that when I was 6 months pregnant. And I had the unfortunate decision of having to make the decision of whether or not I leave him, break up my son's family, and move out into the world on my own with no family. I had friends here, but with no family here. And my family all lives in the UK, and with no help from my ex-partner's family because they live 4 or 5 hours away because Australia is a big country. And yeah, and then I'm a single parent. And within that first year of actually separating from my ex-partner because of the addictions and issues that he had, I had to deal with dropping my son off at McDonald's because McDonald's has 24-hour um, surveillance or video. So it was easier from a domestic violence and abuse situation to drop my son off at McDonald's and do exchanges at McDonald's, because then everything would be caught on video, which you have to consider. I had all my locks changed. And then I also, 2 months after separating, discovered that I had an irregular heartbeat and that my heart was double beating every other beat, which meant that within that year I had to go in a hospital and have a heart operation, which was a bit of an epiphany for me regarding my situation and circumstances and who would look after my son if I wasn't there, and various different things like that. So yeah, at 46, I was having a heart operation and doing it all on my own. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster, this single parent situation. Um, and then for my sanity during COVID, because Melbourne was the most locked down city in the world, I started a podcast for single parents to help them understand that they're not alone, that there is hope. I was 6 years single parent, and people were wondering how I was doing it with no family over here and things like that. And I just thought I'd give people some tools in their toolbox to let them bring up their children and hopefully break the cycle and the stigma that's associated with single parents.
Well, hello, this is Don,
And this is Gina with Focused Healthy Family.
and this is podcast number 117. And today we have the honor of talking to Claire Martin, who is a single mom and a podcaster and founder of Strong, Single, and Human podcast. But before we get into it, let's take just a moment for our sponsor.
And today we're talking about Ask the OT. This is a new program that we're starting where you're going to be able to connect via online, via phone call, Zoom, and ask questions about dealing with elderly parents or loved ones and navigating that journey and incorporating different components, what if your parent has dementia, and how are you supposed to get them to listen to you and follow through? And you got to get them out of their house, but they're resistant and yet they can't follow what you're saying and understand. Or maybe you're wondering, does my dad have dementia? Why is he doing these funny things? What's going on? So we're building a community of support. My years of experience as an occupational therapist working primarily in adult and geriatric rehab, and my background also with my family and helping my father navigate the journey of Parkinson's disease for the past 17 years and seeing his decline and his issues with dementia and all the families I've worked with over the years in working with this population. I want to help other people with this, all this information and experience that I've accumulated. And I know how disconnecting it to be. You're juggling multiple things at once. You're going to work, you're taking your kids to high school activities, and now you're helping your parents navigate it. Maybe it's a long distance thing. So come join us in our community.
Yeah, Gina will be doing her first live kind of Q&A talk on April 2nd, 7 p.m. You can find out more about it by going to our website, focusedhealthyfamily.com. And actually, we have a little logo up there about Ask the OT, whether you can click on that and you'll find out more information about how to get involved with this community that we're building. So check us out, and we look forward to you being there asking your questions starting April 2nd. But it's good to join now and get involved with the community. There's a lot of resources up there for you to be able to pull, and we look forward to talking with you.
Yes, feel free to send us questions you have now.
And we're back. And today we're welcoming Claire Martin, again, the founder and the host of Strong, Single, and Human podcast. As she said, she moved to Australia 16 years ago for love, and she said also for fun, um, and also to work and to live the Australian dream. The last thing expected was to be 49-year-old single mom navigating the challenges of raising a child on her own with no support network. But but that's what she is doing now. And before having her son, she was a project manager, running a global multi-million-dollar IT projects, managing multiple teams, and reported to top-level management. But nothing would have prepared her for the immense ups and downs of being a parent, let alone a single parent. So, Claire, welcome. I've really enjoyed it. Well, I don't know if enjoy is the right word, but your story was really neat to hear. You've been through a lot, and you're still
Yeah,
here. So,
I am.
welcome.
And
Single and human.
yeah, exactly. And like, I'm no different to anyone else out there, really. Life throws you these curveballs,
Mhm.
and you've just got to get on with it, really, which is crazy. Um, and yeah, it's I've got a child, right? So I've got to be there for him. And he was when I separated, he was 2. So
Oh,
Mhm.
wow.
like yeah, it's been interesting because I've had to look at life from his perspective.
Mhm.
It's amazing to have a 5-year-old ask, if you die, am I homeless? And
Uh,
things like that, because we don't have that network, that family connection and network around us.
Mhm.
And I have my son 24/7. So yeah, it's been interesting to actually understand the challenges that he goes through, because I just don't think about those. I just think he's a kid, he's having fun,
yeah.
but he's a pretty deep thinker as well, right? And he
Mhm.
wants to know, why do people drink alcohol? Why do people take drugs?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and am I homeless if you die? What happens to me?
Mhm.
Well, yeah, because I was wondering, like, you went through heart surgery right after
Yeah.
he was born?
No, so he was 2. He
Too.
was
Oh,
2, nearly 3 when I
Oh.
had the heart surgery. So I separated with my ex-partner when he was 2. Um, and yeah, and then about 9 months later, I'm in hospital. on my own, um, sitting there being questioned around what procedure I was having and things like that. And then, yeah, they put
Now,
me in.
how, how did you deal with, who did he stay with someone or?
Right.
So I was really, really lucky. My mum and dad flew over from the UK to look after him because they didn't want him to be with people that he didn't really know very well.
Mhm.
So they flew over and they came over for a couple of weeks, one to look after him, two to look after me. But he was in daycare. So he was in, we have family daycare over here. I don't know if you have it in the States, but it's where you go and you drop your child off at somebody else's house, and
Mhm.
they have a limit of looking after like three or four children. So he'd known this person since he was 6 months old. So because I had to go back to work, I had to
Mhm.
go back to work. I had to work.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, so not my ideal situation. I always thought I would be a family unit. We would have like a mom and a dad, and I'd have children. Maybe have one or two children, and we'd live in this lovely house and
The
two
picket
cars,
fence.
and yeah, two cars, both of us like, having good jobs and not having to worry about money and, all of those things. And yeah, there've been stages where I've gone, okay, not sure how I'm going to pay the bills this month. Or, I was contracting and working on big projects, which was really stressful. I was dealing with custody for my son that year. And then I also had the heart operation. And the week before going into hospital to have the heart operation, the company I was working for went, "We're not going to renew your contract." So it was
Oh.
3 weeks before Christmas, a week before
Oh.
my heart
Wow.
operation. And they were like, "We're
Oh.
not going to renew your contract. So we're really sorry to do this to you. But yeah, you don't have a job." And I was
Wow.
like, okay, this is full on, right? And it's Christmas. So Christmas in Australia is shut down, right? It's our summer. So Christmas hits, all the kids are off school. Kids don't go back to school until February, sort of end of January, February. And so everyone's on holiday. Nobody's taking people on board or anything like that.
Wow.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a very stressful time.
Mm.
But
Well, I was kind of curious because it's interesting that he was two-ish, three, somewhere around there when you had that.
mm,
When I had my heart attack, my youngest was right around two,
Yes,
and
she was two. Don was 52 and he had a sudden
wow.
unexpected, we didn't know he
and
had heart disease.
it was a really
And our kids were 2, 9, and 13.
well
Um it-
the 2-year-old had such a hard time seeing me in the hospital. He got very distant, she got very distant from me,
yeah, when you
and
first came home, it was just sort
and
of
I
this
was
weird
wondering, did your child
disconnect.
have any issue with you being in this hospital and I don't know, just dealing with it emotionally as well as physically too,
I
I
think
guess.
it I think it leads so bearing in mind, right, he'd had me there constantly for 2 years of his life. He'd never had a night without me
Mhm.
um in his life. I was there, I bathed him, I fed him, I put him to bed every night. His father didn't really do any of that. Um and so he'd had me constantly. And then for this one night, and it was only one night. I was only in one
Yeah.
night. Like I have to say the hospitals here are amazing. And I went in the morning, so we dropped him at daycare, and I went into hospital in the morning. I was supposed to be first in the queue, but unfortunately, some other guy had some complications, and so he had to go in before me. And I went in for my operation about 4 o'clock in the afternoon and came out at 7, 8 o'clock at night. And it was very strange for my son because I didn't pick him up from daycare, my parents did. And then he was like, "Well, where's my mum? Is my mum coming back?" And I wasn't there. My mum put him to bed at night. And then when he woke up in the morning, I wasn't there again, right? And I think that has generated um anxiety in him with regards to him being worried if I go out for an evening or if he goes and has a sleepover,
Mhm.
he's worried that I'm not going to be there when he comes home.
Sure.
Where is my mum going to be? So there's been times it's been very difficult for me to go out and have a night out
Mhm.
without him dealing and going through some sort of anxiety around, you're not going to be drinking. Where are you going? How are you getting
Mhm.
home? How late are you going to get home? All of those things, because like I said earlier, when he's 5 and he's going, if you die, am I homeless?
Mhm.
What
Yeah.
what goes on there? Which
How
is,
old?
as a 5-year-old, you wouldn't
Yeah.
want to be thinking that.
How old is he now? He's
Oh, he is going to be 9 this
okay.
year. So
Okay.
I'm loving that you called me 49, but yeah, I'm actually over the hill and I'm now 50. I'm going on that slippery zone. No, that's okay. That's great. I was like, oh, I can
You-
remember 49.
You could have left it that way, I mean.
You're
Yeah, no, I could have done. I could have
you're
done.
you're the youngest. You're the youngest right here of the three of us. So
Oh, damn. That doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, I hit the big 6'5" this year, so I went
Oh,
the Medicare route and all
wow.
of that. So yeah,
yeah.
I don't
Okay,
look a
I
day
would
over
never
64
have put
though,
you at 65. I'd
Yeah.
never put you at 65.
I will
Wow.
be
Okay.
55 this year. Um,
Wow. Well,
Yeah, you
exactly.
guys
Well,
are
same with
old.
you, right? You look a bit like, so yeah, no, exactly.
yeah, Don's always with the
Um,
younger women since
well,
we're 11 years apart.
yes.
So
Wow.
also, I'm kind of curious in your story. You talked about exchange at McDonald's, and because of
Yeah.
the
Mackie
surveillance,
D's.
was that with the father? Or
So because yeah, we were going through negotiations on a parenting plan. So and so the situation legally over here, um if you don't have any agreement, your partner, ex-partner, ex-husband, ex-partner can take your child, and if you don't have a court agreement or anything like that, they can take your child and never give them back. They don't have to give them back. You can request
Wow.
the police to do a welfare check on them. But if you don't have a like custody document or a parenting plan or anything like that that's been approved by the courts, um, then you don't really have any rights as such. You can't demand that your child live with you because you don't have any. You'd have to
Wow.
go to the courts. You'd have to go to the courts to request that they get returned to you. So we were going through. I didn't want that to happen
Mhm.
because of my situation, and so we were going through negotiations around when my ex-partner could see my son.
Mhm.
And now I have my son 24/7. More, it's not through me stopping my son from seeing his dad or his dad seeing him. It's just a choice and decision that his dad's made. But yeah, initially it was drop off and pick up, and
Mm.
he would have him overnight, like pick him up on a Saturday morning and then drop him off on a Sunday night. And I think it's important that my son has something to do with his dad.
Sure.
Even though there are issues, and those issues have sort of been slowly getting sorted out, I'm hoping, over the last sort of like 6 years that we've been separated. Um, but yeah, it was McDonald's, because I didn't know what he would be like when he turned up, whether he'd be drunk, sober,
Yeah.
and what state he would be in when he dropped his son off. So it was easier to actually get all of that captured on camera. Um and I didn't have cameras. I have cameras all around my house now, even now, six years on,
Mhm.
um, because there is still that element of, I don't know whether anything would be done to my house if we were away for the weekend, if we were on holiday or whatever. You just don't know. And the house that we were living in at the time, I got all the locks changed and I still had a fear
Mhm.
that he could come over in one drunken stupor and smash windows or set fire to the house, push
Mhm.
burning papers through the letterbox and set fire to the house and things like that. And while
oh,
we were separating, I was
Mhm.
locking. I, for some reason, had a lock on my bedroom door. It was there when we moved in,
Mhm.
and I would lock my door because he was drinking in the evenings, and I was concerned that he would drink. I knew he would never hurt my son, but that he would come through and be angry at me. And I'd find him straddled across me, putting a pillow over my face or whatever. There were those sort of things that
Oh,
he was that unpredictable. I'm not saying that he was murderous, right? But when he drank, he was that unpredictable that you just didn't know what was happening. When he's sober, he is great, intelligent, focused. And so all of those aspects I saw when we were dating and in the first 6 months where I was pregnant. And then things, the wheels started coming off the car, as it were, after when I was about 6 months pregnant. I started going, well, hang on a minute, what's going on here? So yeah, it was
I can't imagine that
But the
to drop
fear.
him off in exchange, even to
Well, in
know.
the way the laws are, that if he just took off and took him, that you had no legal recourse.
well, because I didn't have a plan. I
Yeah.
didn't have a court approved plan that had been signed and witnessed by both parents and then witnessed by, a third party. There was, yeah. So
Sound
yeah,
like
these are the
so
things.
he was somewhat decent about that as far as doing, n-
Shared custody and
sharing custody.
Yeah, so yes, regarding his son, and I've still got them 6 years on, but the text messages and the abuse that would come directed at me,
mhm.
um, via text message or phone call or, drunken conversation at night. And you can sit there and always, um, you could hear when he'd been drinking and when he hadn't been drinking and things like that. And so it was abuse that was directed at me, not at our son. So that's where I sit and I go, okay, I feel comfortable that my son will be safe. My biggest concern was drink driving.
Yeah,
So
that's what I was just going to
this
ask you.
yeah, this guy's been done for drink driving 6 times maybe. And driving without a license. I mean, there's no, you know, at the end of the day, done for drink driving, banned for 6 months, drove those 6 months without a license, didn't get caught, drove another 6 months. Over here, you have to have an interlocker fitted to your car,
Oh,
which is a machine that your car won't start unless you breathe into it and you register zero alcohol.
oh,
Oh, wow.
okay. I've heard of
Yeah.
those things. So okay, you've got
Yeah.
those in place when you've been arrested for drunk driving. They put that on.
So
Is that
there used to be that you would only get that fitted to your car, and you have to pay to get it fitted, right? This is the penalty of actually being done for drink driving. You have to get it paid to have it fitted to your car. That used to be if you were high range, right? So over 1 point something or other. And now it's mid range or low range. So you could have a beer, drive your car thinking you're okay, get stopped, have a breathalyzer. It could say you're over the limit and you will have an interlocker fitted for a period of time. So low range tends to be 3 months, mid range tends to be 6, and high range tends to be a year, 2 years, depending on your record and things like that.
Wow.
So yeah, and every month it gets calibrated. You cannot cheat. There's a camera on it. So
oh,
when you blow into it, that camera shows who is blowing into that
wow.
interlocker, because some
Wow.
people could get somebody else to blow into it so the car
Sure.
can start and things like
Sure.
that.
Yeah, sure.
And
All kinds of things.
and as you're driving, there's an alarm that goes off and you need to blow into it to confirm that you still don't have alcohol in your system.
Wow.
Because otherwise you could blow into it, your car starts, and then you could
Sure. Start
drink while you're
drinking. Yeah.
driving.
So was that in place when you first separated that law? And
No, it came in. It probably came in just after we separated.
okay.
But you might get, you might go to court and they might stipulate that you have to have an interlocker fitted, but then you've got to go and get that interlocker
Um,
fitted, right? So
I would imagine that helps with the comfort because when you talk about, he was an alcoholic and taking your son and you weren't worried about him hurting your son, but obviously if he's drinking and has your son in the car, that would be my biggest fear. But
yeah,
did having that in place kind of help calm those fears, just that system of
no, not really, because there's no checking, right? So they go to court and say that they can have an interlocker fitted. Um, and basically nobody checks to see whether it's fitted or not.
Oh,
Oh,
And also with addicts, if you are involved with people who enable, then you don't find out that they're. So I had to stipulate every 6 months I need to see the driver's license and see if it's valid, and that there's no marks against it or anything like that. So
wow.
yeah, look, it's been a roller coaster.
Sure.
It's not quite as bad now, and he's older now,
Sure.
so he's more aware of what's going on,
Sure.
and I had to do things like I've given him a GPS watch so he can call me
Hmm.
if he needs me.
Sure.
So which is handy now he's a bit older and he wants to go out on his bike and ride around locally with his mates. So if he needs help, then he calls me on his watch, which is interesting with some of the phone calls. But yeah, and he seems to be a fairly all-rounded kid. I mean, he's dealt with this. I think children are very adaptable. He's dealt with this really
Yeah.
well. Apart from the anxiety and stuff like that, but that's sort
Sure.
of he's growing and learning, oh, mum isn't going to disappear. I'm not going to run off.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah,
well, I
yeah.
mean, I think that from the little bit we know of you, but also from what I can sense is that you were the balance for him. You were the opposite side of that helps him balance out and probably become aware of what his dad is like, so that he knows. Well, one, he knows that he probably doesn't want to end up like that. So, I mean, but yeah, I would,
Yeah, but I don't paint his dad as this evil,
Hmm.
horrible
yeah,
person who
Sure.
at the end of his day, his dad is a good person,
Hmm.
and he's just got demons he needs to deal with,
Sure.
for whatever reason, and he can't help him. My son can't help him. My
Hmm.
son's got two sisters; they can't help him. So, and I can't help him. He needs to help himself, right? And unless
mhm,
he goes there and helps himself. And this is what I mean, gradually, I think he's, delving into those demons and dealing with what he needs to go through. Um, but it's not my journey to travel on, and it's not my son's journey. I don't want him to feel as
Sure.
though he needs to look after his father either,
Sure.
right? It's
yeah,
Sure.
it's about understanding that it's not his fault that his dad drinks. It's not
Hmm.
my fault that his dad drinks.
Hmm.
His dad chooses to drink himself. And
Hmm.
it's about trying to support his father as best you can.
yeah.
I mean, I appreciate you sharing that story. I mean, um, there's a lot to that, a lot of personal, aspects, and yet you still have respect for him and that, he's your child's
Yeah.
father. And, that's one thing we don't have the experience of single parents, but from interviewing other people and talking with people, that when one parent is bad mouthing the other, that does more harm to those kids than the separating
Yeah.
part. Um, and so that's just powerful that you're able to still maintain that. I am curious, you said that right now you have him 24/7. Does he have contact with his father?
So my son is requesting to go and stay with his dad in the school holidays, which
Okay.
is great, right? Because mummy gets a whole week to ourselves. So we trialed that at Christmas,
Okay.
and it went really well. And
Okay.
he went and saw him at Easter, so that's great. And
Okay.
we've got another holiday coming up in June, so fingers crossed that all goes really well. And I'm a little bit because my ex-partner lives on a farm with his father as such. So they're out in the middle of nowhere. But because there's other people around,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not concerned that my son is there left on his own,
Okay.
um, isolated as such. So yeah, it's so because there's other people around, I feel as though, he's not in any danger. And
Mm-hmm.
that to me is paramount. I
Sure.
don't care about other people's feelings and what should and shouldn't happen as such. It's about his sanity, his safety,
Mm-hmm.
and going from there, really.
Yeah, and that's great that he can have contact with his dad despite the
Mm,
situation because yeah, yeah, I just can only imagine, being the kid in the middle of, a separation, and that do you, see one parent or not, and with the situation with the alcoholism and that, obviously it's not real healthy for him to be there all the
No.
time. But I imagine
And it's great because when he stays with his dad, he gets to see his sisters. So he's got two older sisters, 19, or soon to be 19 and 15.
oh,
And
okay.
so they all know the situation and the
Okay.
circumstance. And I go and stay with their mum. So I'll bring Oscar, my son, down, and we'll go stay with their mum, and we'll stay with the girls. And um, we're sort of like that little family unit, and it's very strange how
Because that
me
was
and
he
wife,
had a wife before you. Is that
yes,
okay? So those
yes.
where those daughters came
So
from. So
yeah, so when I came on the scene, his eldest was 8, and the other one, the youngest middle child now, was 5. So
okay.
so she had 8 years of it. So like, hats off to her. Hats off to her. But it's quite funny because it's she can find out what's happening from me, and I can find out what's happening from her regarding him, because
Right.
neither of us finds out. And he's not very good at communicating with us, so he tends to communicate via the children, which is
Okay.
not effective,
Uh-huh.
and especially with my son being 8.
Hmm.
So that doesn't happen. That just I stop that straight away. But it's a bit more harder with a 19 year old. So yeah,
Well,
but
that's great
like
that
they
you
have
have
a
that.
really good relationship. So
Yeah, that you have the connection with his ex-wife, and that he's got those older
Mhm.
sisters, because that's a nice dynamic. To have that support despite, yeah. Um,
Yeah, and all the kids just club together, and they're like, "Oh, it's just dad." So you're like, "Yeah,"
that's cool.
but
That's cool.
yeah.
Well, I was kind of curious as to you've talked about a lot of a lot of things that I would say were kind of obstacles in your life, but are there other, as a single mom, a single person, have you run into other like prejudices or obstacles like in jobs or anything like that because of being a single parent?
I'm really lucky. So regarding jobs, I'm very conscious that if I go for a job interview, that I don't mention I'm a single parent. And that if I get the job, then I mention it when I'm in the job, like doing the job. And so I'm very conscious of not mentioning it as a single parent, although they're like, God love Australia, right? And I'm from the UK as well, right? And we have the prejudices there as well, but like there are racists here, there are, sexism, there's all the isms that you could imagine, still existing in our country. They exist in your country, they exist all over the world, right?
Hmm.
Ageism is another one that I'm butting my head up against as well at the moment. So, it's all good. Yeah, we get old and crazy apparently. And we can't do a job, but hey, that's okay. And so there are all of those, but I've got to say, being a single mum, I do tend to get the better end of the stick, because it is considered, if my child is ill, I can go home and I can pick him up from school, and I can, I get an easier ride at work. There are a lot more things out there geared towards single moms. So I would not want to be a single dad.
Mm.
I don't see there being like single mom groups, single dad groups. Like the guys I work with who are single dads, and I work in IT, so I'm predominantly in a male industry. The guys I work with, who are full time, have their children 100% of the time, get a really rough deal in
Mhm.
some jobs and some areas, because
Mhm.
there is a stigma of like, well, why are you like, isn't there anyone else who can go and pick the kids up? Isn't there anyone else that can do X, Y, and Z? And
Mhm.
I think if I've got to leave off early to take my son to an event or picking him up from somewhere or whatever, um, it's just a given. I've got to do that because I'm a single mom, right? But for single
Mhm.
dads, the expectation is that the kids are with their partners most of the time, and they just get them at weekends. But
Yeah, yeah.
it's
Kind
Kind
it's
of
of got
interesting.
set roles for mom and
Well, it's
dad,
sort of
you
a
know.
interesting reverse on the whole sexism idea that,
Yeah.
yeah, that the different assumptions with moms and dads, but
Well, I mean, yeah, because I mean, the closest I got to that was I was a stay-at-home dad for the probably the first two
Yeah.
years of our first child, but I I know the age prejudice. I mean, I've had that trying to look
Mm.
for a job at, that was back when I was in my 50s and
Yeah, yeah,
still got
you got looked over for jobs because they're like they could hire someone fresh out of college who didn't have a family and could work 70 hours a week. And
I
yeah.
know, it's crazy, isn't it?
um
But they forget about all the experience and the knowledge and all of the other stuff that, yeah, no, I
And
know.
that's
That's
why I
probably a
work at
whole other
McDonald's.
podcast.
No. We have surveillance though,
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm
that's okay.
I'm curious if the McDonald's in the US have surveillance like that.
I don't I don't think we do. I don't We're not as
Oh,
paranoid as
don't you?
Australia, maybe. I don't know.
Well, or just I don't know, the restrictions like the whole what you talked about, the lock on the car. I know I've heard stories about that, and in the US, the whole freedoms, and like I think that's a great idea, but nothing like to get something like that passed in the United States would be a lot more difficult.
Yeah, it's amazing that we have, and like I come from the UK, and there's cameras everywhere in the UK, in city centers in the UK. Like there's cameras everywhere. I don't think there's a road that you can go down in a city in the UK or a town where it hasn't got a camera. Okay, and it's great to say, yes, you don't want to have the cameras, you don't want people watching you until something actually happens to you,
Right.
right? We
And then
have cameras in our cars, we've got cameras on our phones, we've got cameras everywhere. We are, if we don't, if nobody thinks that Google isn't recording everything that you do, and if you've got an Alexa or a Siri or something like that, and nobody is recording, what you're shopping for and where you're going.
right.
Like if you've got the internet and a mobile phone, these people know where you're going. It amazes me how Google sends me an email once a month to go, oh, these are all the places you've visited this month, right? Because I use Google to find out routes to go to
Sure.
different places. I use it to drive.
And,
So
and we do that
yeah.
in the United States as well. And yet,
Yeah.
because like you, yeah, the safety of it. Yeah, there's so many safety features. And yet, yeah, there's a little more, I don't know, people are disconnecting the United States with the reality of that and just taking my freedoms away. I know it's just, I shared something on Facebook. Oh, we had a neighborhood yard sale. And my daughter
All
said,
right.
I posted a picture. My mom and my daughter's like, "Mom, you named our neighborhood so people know where we are." I'm like, "Honey, anyone can put my name and address it. They can figure out where I
Yeah.
live. Like, it's not a secret. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to put your age out there and other things, for your privacy, but like, I'm not paranoid about that because I think it can be found out so easily." Um,
Oh, yeah. No, definitely. There are ways and means, and the internet makes it so much easier, right? So,
right.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
People,
mean,
no,
we
I
found
agree.
you,
I
didn't we? I
agree.
mean,
Well, exactly.
yes.
Exactly. What? But those sort of things and safety, I have to say, as a single parent and being a single mom on your own, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those sort of things do worry and concern me. Like people might think I'm crazy in the States, but I have cameras all around my house. So I have
Oh.
cameras on my driveway, cameras on the front of the house, cameras on the back of the house. They're not fantastically expensive cameras, but they record up into the cloud
Mm-hmm.
and it's okay. However, there is just me and my child here, right? And if there's a zombie apocalypse, I want to film it and go from there. But like we've had people walk along our road, kids, in mid-teens, 15, 16, in hoodies. We call them hoodies over here, but they're in
yeah.
hoodies and they check all the doors on the cars. So we've had them standing in my garden, checking my car door to see if they could take my car or take what's in my car or whatever. And God love my neighborhood because my neighbors across the road came out. There was my neighbors beside me came running out to see if they could help. So I mean it's an awesome neighborhood to be in. And I think COVID helped us a little bit with that because we all checked on each other
Mm-hmm.
during COVID. And I'm not sure we would have done that if COVID hadn't have happened.
Mm.
Um, and
I'm kind of
and that we were
curious
locked
though.
down.
I'm kind of curious as to why you park your car in the garden though.
It's in my driveway. But these guys stood in the garden and we could hear something outside. We could hear something outside the bedroom window. And so I checked the cameras. So we're watching these guys looking around the car and then I got, well, rightly or wrongly, but then I got a bit hormonally angry about it and thought, right, I'm just going to go out and confront these people, which probably in the US you might not want to do.
Although
We
people
don't tend
have.
to have, yeah, well, we don't the and it's stupid here as well because they have very big long knives and things like that, but these guys didn't seem as though they were armed. They just
Right.
seemed a bit opportunist.
Mhm.
But yeah, but I went to go outside and by then my neighbors had come out across the road and had chased them off, right? But it is a bit, yeah.
It's scary.
Well, but that's not, I mean, uncommon. We have cameras. I mean, my son, he has a fiance, but it's just the two of them. He's got a camera in his car. He's got cameras on his house.
Yeah,
It's a very common thing. We have the Ring doorbell. Because in our neighborhood, there's been a
my
lot of
camera's a Ring.
issues. There's been a
So
lot of
Ring,
big, yep,
there's some
get
money,
a
please.
sponsor there. We've had that issue here. A lot of people trying to break into cars, whether it's because it's
Yeah.
cold and they're homeless or they're looking for some money, some
Yeah,
change.
wow.
So yeah, that's sort of I guess, kind of a universal thing that can happen anywhere. And so yeah, we all agree those cameras are helpful.
Yeah, definitely.
Well,
Definitely.
um, now talk a little bit about your podcast. It was neat
Oh,
to, I
yeah.
think you even said that I, I think you say it in your little description here about wanting to give some hope, to other
Yes.
single parents. So, like, tell us a little bit more about, like, I guess, like why you decided to and how what have you learned off of it, or what has it done for you?
Mhm.
Yeah, look, and I wanted to just cover off why I called it what I've called it, which is strong, single,
Yeah.
and human, right?
Sure.
Because I think any single parent has to be strong for your child, for yourself. Obviously we're single, right? And then the human side of it is just to say, hey, everyone, right? Because I found that and I think this is one of the reasons I sort of started it. Um, so 2020 hit and we were all locked down in Melbourne because of COVID and things like that, and everyone was worried about people getting COVID and dying and all of this stuff. Even more so as a single parent, in the fact that I'd had my son, so I couldn't afford
Mhm.
to get in hospital and things like that. So it's a bit isolating, and so everyone I think started going online and watching Instagram and Facebook and all of this stuff. And I was getting a bit disillusioned with all these single parents who were going, oh, this is great. I've got my own business. I've got 5 children and I'm a single parent and I'm doing it all on my own. And I'm like, whoa, hang on a minute. I've got one child and I'm falling apart sometimes. So I'm not sure what's going on here, but I don't think this is right. And I found that it was just a very, there were times where I felt hopeless, right? Because I felt, oh, I should be doing X, I should be doing Y. And basically, I wanted to help because I thought, well, I can't be the only other parent out there, single parent out there that's going, Jesus. Um, and so I wanted to set this podcast up to help other single parents who were leaving a house with suitcases and their kids and packing them into a car and driving off into the night, not knowing where they were going, leaving a domestic violence situation, who were in fearful situations, fearing for their safety, no job, nothing. People who had just lost a loved one, because you're not only a single parent through coming out of a toxic or a toxic relationship or a non-toxic relationship, because some relationships just break down naturally. You can be a single parent because you've lost someone, right? And so dealing with your children's emotions of losing a parent and also your emotions of losing a partner as well, right? So that's another roller coaster. So it was really around just giving people tools and hope that what they're going through at the moment is not great, but this too will pass, right? You just got to keep going, keep moving forward, right? You're not in this on your own. There's other people who have been in the situation and they're thriving now and they're doing really well. So that was why I started it, to just get out there and just interview people like yourselves and and interview authors and give people ideas for jobs and other things that they want to do, and show people that if they want to be, a entrepreneur online, or they want to write a book, or they can do whatever they want. Just being a single parent isn't or shouldn't stop them.
Yeah.
You've got to be a bit more time efficient, and you've got to think outside the box sometimes if you want to do something and there's not two of you. But yeah, that was why I started it.
Well, and thinking about with the human part, that's very perceptive of you to put that in there, because I work with parents in my tapping process, and
Yes.
coaching and all, and I think kids tend to not see parents as human. We see them as parents, and then they block off the fact that they're human and they make mistakes and things like that. Because they get a lot of parents that are so afraid of making mistakes, and their kids seeing, oh, I'm screwing up my
Gotta
child.
hold it together for my kid. I gotta.
Yeah, and to see them as a parent, as human, I think helps the child to better, well, like you say, grow up well-rounded, and knowing and learning things from the parent through example. So I think it's neat that you put that on there and added that piece in there, because yeah, strong is important, but also showing not your weak side, but that you have
Right. You have those moments of where
you have
how
those
can I do
make
moments.
this? Falling
mistakes.
apart.
That's
Right.
that's how we learn. We make mistakes. That's how we learn. And we need to say to our children, hey, it's okay to make a mistake. Okay, you made a mistake. It's not a biggie. Just don't worry about it. How are you going to change that? What are you going to learn from it? How are you not going to make the mistake again? Because the biggest mistake that we can do is just to continue to do the same thing,
Right.
bang our
And
head
expect
against the
different
wall, and
results, right?
yeah,
Isn't that crazy?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it is. It's a definition of crazy, isn't it? Um, and so it's about, okay, you made a mistake. It's all right. It's not a problem. We pick ourselves up and we move forward. How are you going to do it differently? What should you be doing now?
Right.
And those are the things that I think we need
Hi,
to be
kitty.
teaching our children. Oh,
Hi, kitty.
we
Yep.
got joined by another friend, a cat.
Yes.
Yes.
It's the podcast time. We're sitting still. She's like, oh, it's time to sit in someone's lap.
Oh, yeah.
The other reason I love the strong, single, and human is you talked about when you were home with COVID, the lockdown and looking at Instagram, and so many people make a pretty face that, the makeup, they make it look like everything's going smoothly, and they don't show that other side. They just,
Yeah.
there's probably a name for it, but you talk about that and, you go on Facebook and they're just showing everything like everything looks perfect. And we all know that that's not the full picture, right? They're
No.
not sharing all that. And so it's deceptive, like you said, you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing it right. Whether it's you're a parent with a partner or you're a single parent, you feel like, oh, wow, look what they're doing. They're living this life and they're going on these vacations and they have it so good. And, and in reality, there are other aspects of their life that they're not sharing. And so, like you, we feel it's important to have discussions around these things. And, I love that you're podcasting, you've interviewed us twice now on different topics, and just sharing with people different resources. That's why we especially love having people on who cover areas that we don't have personal experience with. We've never
Yeah.
been single, we've never been divorced. We did the whole foster care thing, parenting through divorce and different things. Those experiences, because you learn best from hearing about other people who've been through it, and how we can best help our children. Like we've talked about anxiety before, dealing with kids with anxiety. Someone comes to you and they have no children and they think they have all the answers, and you're just going to be like, yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's right. And but also I think it kept me sane during COVID because I got
Sure.
to talk to other adults.
Yeah,
Because bear
yeah,
in
you
mind, right? But Melbourne had was it 260 days? I can't remember. Like it goes into a blur now, and I can't imagine being locked down for almost a year. We were locked down for almost a year.
yeah,
And
Australia was
when I
very
say
tight on things. I remember hearing that
yeah,
in the news.
exactly right. I mean, crikey, thanks, US. You had people like out there, like, demonstrating for us, right? Which was great, but we were in it and we were okay, right? It's the Aussie way of doing things where they just go, we'll be all right, we'll be fine, right?
And
We just have to find things to do.
and you
But we
had to.
could, we could only go shopping, we could only go to the doctors, we could leave our house for an hour every day. It was a bit
Wow.
like being in prison. Leave our house for an hour every day to go on a 5K walk, which was great the first couple of weeks, but got very boring with I think my son was 5 at the time, right? So it got very boring with a 5-year-old. So we'd go out at different times of the day. We had a curfew, so you couldn't be out before 6 a.m. And after 9 p.m. or 8 p.m. at night, right? So it was, yeah, it was like being
Oh,
a teenager again. It was great. And yeah, so there were things like that, I mean, we have so off licenses where you buy wine and beer, and we call them bottle-os over here. Basically everyone was rushing out to go and get their beer and wine and stock up because we didn't know whether we'd be able to leave, because then that was all we were doing was drinking, watching TV. So TV got a good smashing, and watching online social media and things like that.
yeah.
So
So you created a network of support for yourself and interviewing people and inviting
yeah.
people, right? Because we are now, everybody knows Zoom, and it's become even though it existed before COVID, just being able to interview someone.
Yeah.
I told my kids we're interviewing someone in the future because it's Saturday where you are and it's Friday
Yes.
here.
Yes, that's right. And, and it was just great to actually talk to so many different people who were doing such positive things.
Mhm.
And who'd been through hell. Some of the people I interviewed had been through hell, right? Some of the mums had their ex-partners had stalked them. Some of the dads hadn't had a great time either. And, they were left just depressed because they couldn't see their children, and the courts were saying that their partners had said, oh, they were abusing the children and they weren't. And like, it's just amazing all of the different things that people have gone through.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was great to actually connect out with people.
So other than us, who was your favorite person to
Oh,
interview?
there's so many. There are absolutely so many because
Did you get anybody famous? Like
oh,
celebrity or anything like that?
not US famous.
Okay.
Um,
That would be us.
However you see, yeah, exactly. So so we've got a lady over here, Michelle Mitchell. She is a parenting guru. She goes on
Okay.
the TV and does various. So she came on to about 2 or 3 of my podcast interviews,
Okay.
and we were talking about children who self-harm,
Mhm.
and then we were talking about bringing up teenagers and tweens and things like that. And then I had a guy come on. So I've covered a lot of subjects, people. Like I
Sure.
had a guy come on who I loved. This is nearly one of my first interviews. He came on, he set up a sperm donation nation over here in Australia
Wow.
because a lot of single mums don't want to go there and get into a relationship. So they go IVF the second or third time um, because they just want a brother or a sister for their child. And I've known single mothers out there who are single mothers by choice. They didn't want a partner, they weren't in a
Right.
relationship, but they
Right.
wanted kids. And I considered it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And to tell you the truth, it would have been simpler if I'd have gone down that avenue, but it's all good. It's all good.
Hindsight's 2020.
But yeah, and so the IVF clinics and things like that here, um because we're such a big country, that you people in and around the IVF clinic go and give their sample, as it were. I don't know how I'm going to put this right, but then you would find that people in and around near where the clinic are would go and get inseminated, right, and have a child, right? But that child, this person might have 10 or 15 children in and around the area that the IVF clinic is, right? And these children grow up, then they go out into the, worldwide, and they go to a local pub or they go to a club or whatever in that area, and they could, and it has happened,
Oh,
they could meet somebody who actually they've got the same father because they were both
Oh,
IVF babies and
oh,
they've got the same father, right? And so they get into a relationship and then we go, oh, hang on a minute, we can't continue because we're related, right? We're
oh,
wow.
half brother
yeah.
and sister. So this guy set up this sperm donation thing to sort of try, and so the children know both parents and things like that and where they come from, and also for any diseases or anything like that. So he said that was an interesting interview,
Oh,
I
yeah.
have to say.
But you don't think about that. But yeah, what an awful thing to go out and meet someone and then be like, oh my God,
Yeah,
we're
They'd have to
closely
move to a
related.
cult somewhere, probably in Nevada.
yeah,
Nevada.
yeah, yes. I don't know. It's just, but it's because we stay locally, right? And it's Australia's a big country, right? So yeah, people sometimes just grow up and stay where they were born. They don't move
Right.
around
Oh yeah, we get
like
that
us,
too.
right?
Yeah,
You know,
that can
Yeah,
happen here.
the
Yeah, I've
fact
met.
that
yeah,
the town we live in, there's a lot of that people haven't
yeah,
explored 30 miles outside of the city a lot of times.
Right, right.
yeah. No, exactly. So he was interesting. I also interviewed a radio celebrity here, who has a charity for male suicide. And so I've done a lot on male suicide because the year before I had my son, a friend of mine in the UK committed suicide. And I'd always, before my friend committed suicide, I'd always been of the view as, oh, that's just an easy way out, oh, what are they doing? That's so selfish and blah, blah, blah. And I'd never really thought about the dark side of it. And this guy he seemed to have it all together. He'd got two grown-up kids. He was starting out, he was 52. He was starting a new job on the Monday. He'd recently lost his mother, which was unfortunate, and he was grieving her. But he was in a place where he couldn't dig himself out of, and so decided he's going to hang himself. So,
Um,
and you've got to be in a there's a to me, I was like, wow, knowing him for so long,
Sure.
I was just like, wow, okay, maybe my preconceived ideas about suicide are not correct. And it's unbelievable. And it happens. Like in Australia, nine people attempt suicide. I don't know if nine people attempt suicide and succeed, but they definitely attempt suicide every day here in Australia.
I
Mm.
mean, I was just reading about Robin Williams, and
Yeah,
how tragic that was, and how everybody was wondering, why would you want to do that? He's successful, you know, but I was reading about what he was going through
yeah,
with the disease that he had. He had the Louis,
Lewy body dementia.
and it was
yeah,
really taking over his mind, and he was in a lot of pain. So it was kind of a good ending for him, because he was
yeah.
the way he was going, he wouldn't have been able to even control himself or deal with, so you
No,
Yeah,
never know,
you
exactly,
never know,
exactly.
right? Until you.
Sorry, that was my son interrupting us.
Well,
He's like, Mom, are
we
we supposed
probably
to be
need to
going?
wrap it up for it
Yes,
Yes,
anyway.
no, exactly. No,
we so
exactly.
love having you on, and you keep talking about the lockdown in Australia, and with COVID, and all I keep remembering is that Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson, I think, were there filming when that all
I
happened, and
know.
he got locked down there. I'm like, you got Tom Hanks for.
Yeah, we did. They got COVID, I think, though, as well.
Yes, they
Yeah,
did.
yeah, twice. I
Yes.
think they've had it twice.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
well, we've had it twice as well, even though we got locked down. Me and my son have had it twice as well.
That's
But
yeah.
so.
yeah.
So, just quick, a little bit about how people can best find out about you, about your podcasts, and maybe give some like,
Any last minute thoughts you want to share for
yeah,
single parents out there or anything like that?
Yeah, look, I like last minute thoughts is this too shall pass, right? Best piece of advice I've ever had is just sometimes you just need to sit in it and wait. And just go one foot in front of the other, step by step by step, just try and get through the days. If I'm having a bad day, I go to bed early because I just want to go to sleep and wake up for a fresh new day. The podcast is everywhere that you can get podcasts. I don't think there is a place that it isn't. It is Strong, Single, and Human. It's on Apple, Spotify, all over the place. It would be great if people could listen to it. It's got about 150 odd episodes now. I've been going for like 3 years now. And many more to come, many more to come. And give it a listen if you like it. Give it a rating, because it gets me up the charts so more people listen. And I hope you enjoy.
Yes, we will share a link for it.
Yeah.
Here on our podcast. And, you've interviewed us twice, and it's been so nice turning the tables and getting to know you more and your story and asking you questions. So we've really enjoyed that. So thank you for being here today, Claire.
No, thank you.
And this is our podcast for today. We hope the viewers, you have enjoyed it, that you will share this podcast with others. Share the link to this particular podcast and to learn more about Claire and Strong, Single, and Human. If you want to learn more about Don and I, be sure to leave comments and feedback. Reach out to us on our Facebook page, our Focused Healthy Family website page. You can tune in for our Tuesday tips, which you can get in email format, and it's a short podcast we air every Tuesday. If you're listening to us, you can also find our regular podcasts on YouTube, and be sure to sign up for our upcoming programs that we have on our website. Look out for our Ask the OT. We are doing a whole program on caring for aging loved ones. You can learn more about that on our website. And remember, how you speak to your children today shapes their future and yours.